What's poppin', fight fans? Welcome back to another interview with me, Mystic Black. Today I'll be interviewing UFC veteran, 11-year veteran, four-time Performance of the Night winner, Nick Lentz. He'll be joining us here shortly. We'll be on here and we'll have a good conversation. And thank you guys so much for coming on. I appreciate it. I know it's Monday, ready to start the week off fresh and new, and I appreciate you guys all for being here today. Gonna get Nick in here and we are going to start. Give me one moment. Here we go. Shortly. Sure it works. And we're good. There he is. Nick Lenz.
Yeah, how
How
you
you
doing?
doing today, brother?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for joining me today on this Monday, June 6th, after a long weekend, July 4th. I appreciate you for coming on.
Yeah, anytime.
Abs-
Anytime.
Absolutely. First things comes first. How you doing during this pandemic time period? A lot of things are happening in the world. Uh, we're in a different time. How are you dealing with this?
Um, I'm doing okay. I got my eye has been injured, so that's been frustrating. So that has really limited what I'm able to do as far as training, as far as just general life goes. I can't see too well. So, this COVID thing has really set it back. It's really hard to see specialist doctors about your eyes because they're all full.
Yeah.
So it's been taking a ton of time to be able to get into the right doctors, see all these kind of specialists and stuff. And I'll probably have to end up getting surgery on my eye, and then
Oh, wow.
hopefully we can get a fight scheduled from there. So, like you said, you said you saw me running, and then you sent me a message on here.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of running. that's about
I
that's
see
about
that.
that's
But
about all, running and riding my bike and stuff. That's about all I can do right now.
I,
But
I
yeah, I'm
really,
just
really, yeah.
yeah. But overall, as far as the lockdown goes, a lot of people don't know, but I actually run some investment stuff, and I also manage my own money. So I've been doing quite well in the stock market by trading all the volatility and stuff like that. So overall, like being
With them.
stuck in the house hasn't been so hard for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get into that a little bit later on. Just want to tell everybody a funny story. Down here in South Florida, I was just riding my bike and I just turned and looked to the corner. And I'm like, is that Nick Lenz? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to let him go. Then second time again, I'm riding my bike. I looked to the left. I'm like, that's 100% Nick Lenz. But I wasn't going to bother you. You know, you're running, you're doing your
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Last thing you want to do while you're on that workout is stop. So I didn't want to bother you, but I sent you a message. I appreciate you for
Yeah, yeah,
responding.
for
So
sure.
we haven't seen you fight since January against
Yep.
Arnold Allen. Unfortunately, the fight didn't go your way, but we haven't seen you since. But you said you had an eye injury that you haven't been able to see a doctor for. That's why it's taken longer, or the recovery time. It just nothing is really changing.
No, it's not getting better. So
Hmm.
at the end of the second round in the fight, um, I got poked in the eye, and then in the beginning of the third round, I got poked in the eye again. And since
Yes,
then,
I remember.
since that's happened, I've had double vision. So the whole rest of the fight, I saw like two or three Arnold Allens at a time. It was a mess. Like I
Wow.
never had to deal with some crap like that, you know. And I still think I beat him, but besides the point. but yeah. So that was the fight obviously didn't go how I want, but the more frustrating part was like after the fight was over, it's like when I was going to like get out of the ring, like I couldn't see anything, you know? Like I look down and I see like three sets of steps and I have to like have people come and people are trying to talk to me as fans, you know. I look at them and I see them my vision was just awful.
Completely
So
blurry.
yes, well, not just blurry, but I see double vision and stuff like that. So I ended up going to the hospital that night and they couldn't tell me anything. They're just like, well, hopefully it gets better. Then I came back and I saw all these other doctors, and they weren't really sure what was wrong with the eye they couldn't really figure it out. So I had to see like specialist after specialist, and then I finally found one. And the reason they couldn't see what was wrong is because it's really hard to damage what I damaged because it's like the nerves that I damaged are like way in the back in your head.
Uh,
They're in like the middle of your head. So the idea of someone's finger getting that far into your head, it doesn't really happen. So,
Yeah.
so when they were like trying to diagnose it, they couldn't figure it out. Like they couldn't figure it out. And eventually, I went to a specialist, and they ran these tests. And then what ended up happening is my eye is actually paralyzed.
Wow.
So it doesn't move certain directions. So that's why I see double, because it doesn't keep up with this other
Oh,
one.
staying in one place.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you touch it or anything like that, do you feel it, or is it just staying out that one place? Like for instance, like right now, can you see straight up, or when you run?
I can see, well, when it first happened, I couldn't see at all
Hmm.
anywhere. Like I was blurry everywhere. But now I can see if I look straight. So like how I'm holding the phone now, I can see. But if I put it down here, then it's double.
Ah,
And
okay.
if I put it over here, it's double.
Double. Okay.
But if I see it over here, I can see, you know. You know, I would
Wow.
show you guys, but it looks messed up if I look the wrong, like my eyes like pointing the wrong direction and
Yeah.
stuff.
No,
So,
that's okay. That's okay. You don't have to. So you,
yeah, there's like a picture online, the meme, and they say like, "Are you a wizard?" That's how it looks. Like
just
this guy's like looking the wrong direction. So,
I'm
but yeah.
sorry. I'm so sorry that happened. You know, the fight game, a lot of things happening, especially when you're in that ring and putting your livelihood on the line in any fashion that way. So you dropped down to featherweight for that fight. Was there any reason you went back down to featherweight?
Um. Well, I initially went up to 55, not because I wanted to, but because I was having a hard time making the weight
Yeah.
at 45. And I couldn't figure it out. I was like one of the most disciplined fighters. I'm extremely disciplined with my diet, with my training and everything, but I just couldn't keep the weight off. And it took me a while to figure out that like I wouldn't say I have like any kind of like disease or anything, but
Yeah.
I have a very sensitive like blood sugar and these type of things. And so once I figured out how to remanipulate that, I was able to make the weight again. And so the plan was always to just hang around 55 long enough until I could make my last run at it at 45.
At 145. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you definitely, after you get through this injury, you plan on going back to 145?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay there. Yeah, I'm gonna stay there until I'm done fighting.
Awesome. So let's go back a little bit to when you first started. You went from college standout to getting into MMA. What made you want to go towards take the MMA route instead of getting a degree and maybe having like a regular job?
Uh, well, I wrestled at the University of Minnesota,
Yeah.
and I like to wrestle, but I don't know if I really like wrestlers.
Mm,
I didn't like the team. I didn't like how they trained. I'm a very self-motivated type of guy, so I don't need people like yelling at me and stuff like that. And like
yeah.
we just didn't really jive that well. And just college in general, I say this because I don't want people to think you shouldn't go to college, but college wasn't right for me. You
Yeah.
know, it's not. It's just something that like I didn't fit in there. I didn't fit in there at all. Just the way I think, the way I do things, the way my life is. It just it just didn't seem like a good fit for me. So I was struggling on what I wanted to do with my life, and I was young, so it's like you really, I'm only like
Yeah.
21 or 20. Think I was 20 years old at that time. And I was like, well, I'm going to try one of these fights because I saw people trying the fights, and I went out there and I tried this fight, and I smashed the guy in like 10
Yeah.
seconds. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try it again. I tried it again and I did the same thing. I tried it again and I did the same thing. I tried it again and did the same thing. I said, like
Think of this.
this this could be something that I'm good at, and my wrestling fit well, and I was winning the fights, and I wasn't getting paid in barely anything, but it was never like a plan to be an MMA fighter. It's just like after like a year or two of doing that, it just became my life. And then I was like, oh, well, this is probably what I should do.
Yeah. So you were in Minnesota and you ended up training the same gym that Brock Lesnar was in. How was it training with a guy like Brock Lesnar, or were you there while he was there at the same time, seeing him train and the way he was?
Yeah. I trained with Brock. I helped him out with the Ultimate Fighter too when he
Yeah.
was the coach on there. I helped Ferguson get ready for his first UFC or the UFC fight that he was in for that. And then yeah, I mean he was a cool guy for the most part. Sweats a lot, super
That's,
sweaty guy.
they didn't give
uh,
him any. They didn't give him any kind of special treatment when he was there. Like people had to leave the gym, or everybody was just around.
well, actually, it's kind of a funny story because there's I'm not totally right in the head. So when he came in one day, like I was training somewhere and they told me I had to leave. And I was like, I don't know who you guys are talking to, but I was at this gym way before you, so you guys can just wait for me to get done. And like, I don't know if anyone had ever said something like that to, it was Marty Morgan and him, and like they just looked at me. I was like, well, you guys can kick rocks because I ain't leaving until I'm done. And
Wow.
then, and then they waited. And then one time it was actually pretty funny because Brock was super nice to me. We were actually friends, but we were grappling and he was kind of being nice to me, like playing around. And I said, I'm going to choke you. He's like, you can't choke me. So I'm going to choke you. I'm going to guillotine you. And so we were kind of playing around, and I jumped on the guillotine and I got him. I
Oh
locked
wow.
I locked on it, and he had to tap. And then
Wow.
so he taps out because, and like, I mean, if he was going like serious, it would have been harder for me. But we were just
Yeah.
grappling, and I locked it on. And I tapped him out. And then after he tapped out, he picked me up like you do in wrestling, like with one arm, and he just picked me up over his head and just chucked me across the room. So it was like, so I got my little win, but overall, I would have caught an ass whooping. So
One of those
thank
F5s.
God. Yeah.
So
So
now
thank God he was nice to me.
we got to add that to Brock Lesnar's list of submission losses. Not only to Frank
Yeah,
Mir,
that's
but he
right.
got tapped
Yeah,
out by Nick
got
Lentz
tapped
too.
out me.
So you went from Minnesota and you came down to American Top Team. Who was the person that got you to come down here? Was there somebody specifically you wanted to work with? I know you're not at American Top Team right now, but how'd you get to American Top Team?
Um, I had outgrown Minnesota,
Hmm.
so just the amount of training partners. I used to train with Sean Shirk. I
Yeah.
used to train with Nick Thompson. I used to train with a guy named Derek Noble. All amazing fighters, all three of them. And just through life, like they got a little older, they retired, they moved on. And so suddenly I didn't have the training partners that I needed to train with. So I wanted to find the best gym I could. And I got someone, Mike Dolce at the time. I had just started working with him, and he put me in contact with Dan Lambert. And I called Dan Lambert, and then he said, "Hey, come on down whenever you want." So I came down, and that was kind of that was my place. I planned on staying at ATT for my whole life. It just didn't work out that way at the end.
It don't work out, unfortunately. So now
Yeah.
you're training with Henry Hooft, correct?
Yep.
And do you feel it benefits you more being in I guess it's a smaller gym because American Top Team has way more fighters there. Now Henry Hooft, it's kind of, maybe more specialized towards you and maybe you have more one-on-one time. Do you feel it benefits you more than it did when you were at American Top Team?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I have no issue with the people at American Top Team. I love those guys. I love Dan Lambert. I love all the fighters there. But my issue was there was such a rotation of fighters coming in and out of the gym that I was at that like I would be sparring and I would look to my left and there would be like a whole team of people that for the guy that I was going to fight, like
Oh,
watching me train. So so I was like, yeah, like I can't be doing stuff like that. Like like I can't have somebody's corner man watching me train.
yeah.
Like I can't deal with that. And I went to him and I told him that, and they said like they understood what I was saying, but that just the way the gym was turning into that it would be impossible for them to keep everybody out of it, like and to keep like the fighter crew how it used to be. And so what really happened there, you have people like kind of section off into other gyms, like UL has his own little gym and that's where Jorge and them go. And it just sort of divided and I just needed a different place to train because I just wasn't okay with that.
Yeah.
And it, probably my own fault, but it made me not really feel at home, like to have to deal with that. So then I was just like one day, like I do everything in life. I don't know why
Yeah.
I have this problem, but I decided that I was done with ATT. So I just called them up that day and I said, hey, I'm done with ATT. Like I'm going to go somewhere else. I hadn't picked any other gyms. I hadn't done anything. I just quit before I did it, and then I called my wife up and I was like, I have no idea what the hell we're going to do, but I just quit ATT.
Not there.
And that's the whole reason we moved down here. So,
Yeah.
I don't know where we're gonna go or what we're gonna do, but I mean, thankfully I've had a long enough career and people respect me enough that all I had to do was walk into Henry's gym and they let me stay there.
Yeah. How'd you make that connection with Henry?
I don't remember exactly. I just was looking for gyms and I think I just hit him up and just said, hey, can I come by? And they said, cool. You know, I walked
Yeah.
in, and I remember I walked into the gym. It wasn't awkward at all or anything. I mean, people were surprised to see me. And like Michael Johnson was like, "Oh, hey Nick, how you doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna try it out." They're like, "Oh, all right, cool, come on in." From there,
That's
that's what we did.
that's awesome. So do you feel like you've gotten maybe a different style, maybe a style of striking now? Because Henry Hooft is more Dutch boxing based. Did you feel like that changed you a little bit?
Well, early in my career, I went on a very impressive win streak and run,
Yes.
right, in my career,
Mhm.
and I fought a certain way, and I would say today my style might have been a little more appreciated because people are more, they understand what they're watching a little
Yeah,
better. But
absolutely.
but back then, people didn't like grappling, they didn't like stuff. And so even though I was winning, every time I would win a fight, I was still like farther away from the title because of how I won the fight.
Yeah.
And so I established early on after that experience that fighting is a sport, but it's also entertainment.
Yeah.
So if I have the ability to win fights, and I can string together wins, but they're not done in a way that's appeasing to fans, or it's not going to give me the promotion or the things that I need, then it's almost like losing.
Yeah.
So I was kind of in a corner of what do I do? Like I can continue to fight like this, and I could probably, I think I could have made a decent shot at the title, but it was like, but if I lose a fight, they're going to fire me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like my job is always not secure because I'm not providing what's needed to the UFC.
Yeah.
So once I did that and I figured that out, and I I started working on my striking. I sort of had to adapt the style, and even though it's led to some mild setbacks, in the long run, it has produced a far better life for my family. It's made me a lot more money, and it's also given it's 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 just a funner and better way to fight. So that's that. Every time I can make the striking better, or I can evolve into a more complete fighter, that's what I'm after.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea behind that.
So you're a guy that has won four times. You've gotten a performance bonus, and we're
Yeah,
in a realm to where fighters feel like they're not making enough money, and they lose a lot from the tax man at the end of the year. Mike Perry was just recently talking about it. Jorge Masvidal, of course, has spoken up about it. Do you feel that you have your own trade that you do with the stock trading? Do you
yeah.
feel that that MMA fighters need to have another realm of income, not just from fighting?
Well, I mean, it just depends on what you think you're going to get when you join the game. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, so a lot of guys, when they come into the UFC, they think they got it made,
Yeah,
right? And like you just started.
yeah,
Like getting into the door of the UFC is nothing, and that's one of the things that few people understand. It's really, 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 really hard to stay around in this game, especially in the UFC. There's a lot of guys that like you can't even think about anymore that were the shit for a second, and then they just fade away.
yeah,
And those are the type of guys that like they got into the UFC. They probably made $5 grand a fight. Suddenly they made 100 grand, and then they think that they're rich, and
yeah,
then the tax man takes half of it, and then the next year comes around, and they're used to that 100 grand because they won, and then they lose a fight, and now they get paid 50, and then they got to put some of that in taxes, and all of a sudden they went from making 100 to making 30, and now they have $100,000 lifestyle, and it just falls apart, and that's where you get into this problem of the game. And I'm not going to lie to you. Early in my career, I felt like I should have got paid more money.
yeah,
I felt like, hey, I work harder than a lot of these people in these other sports. I work harder than these people in the UFC, and I think I should get paid more. But at a certain point, you have to grow up, and you have to you have to accept the situation that life gives you. And like I said, I adjusted my fighting style because I wanted to make more money.
yeah,
Right? I accepted at the end of the day that even if I won 30 fights in a row and I didn't do it in the proper manner, they weren't giving me a title shot anyways.
yeah,
So so I wanted to make more money, so I did that. And then also these you start talking about like we're gonna have unions, we're gonna have all this stuff. People don't really think about how long MMA's been around. MMA has not. It's only been for real for what, 15 years, maybe
Yeah. Yep.
more like 10, where
Yeah.
it's like for real, right? Like so when you're talking about like baseball or you're talking about basketball, I mean these are sports that have been around for like 100 years or plus. So the idea that you're gonna like just create a union out of nowhere, or you're gonna it's fantasy. You know what I mean? And I want to get paid more, obviously,
Yeah.
because I can't do this for my whole life. So I want to make as much money as I can before it's over.
Before you're gone. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right? But I want Masvidal as my friend. I
Yeah.
want Masvidal to make as much money as possible. I know
Yeah.
the man. I know I want his kids to be happy. I want them to be taken care of. But it's not like the UFC is like totally stingy. They kind of get that idea like they don't give it money to anyone. I mean, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
The UFC gave me a chance to yeah, like I come from a very humble background, and it's allowed me to make more money and to take care of my kids way better than I was way better than the shot I had when I was young.
Yeah.
So like I can't be like, well, I think I should get paid $200,000 more or $1 million. Like I can't really be that upset about it because the UFC gave me an opportunity that I could have never had. So there is a middle ground in between, like, should fighters get paid more? Yeah, of course. I mean, we should get paid as much as football players do and stuff. It's just as hard, just as many people watch it. So there's definitely like, we should get paid more. But I think I don't think it's like a winner take all, like it's the UFC versus the fighters or anything like that. I think that gets oversimplified.
Absolutely. So you got into the trade game now in the stock market. As you can see, you kind of panned over to the corner and I saw the screens there. So you're probably watching live as we speak. How'd you get into the stock market? Because that's not something that's too easy to do.
No, it's not easy at all.
Or is it?
No, it's not. I mean, it's easy to make some trades and stuff, but to do it for real, it's very difficult. The same thing. I could have always been I can be a coach, right? I'm going to be a highly sought after coach because I'm a very technical person.
Mm-hmm.
I understand training. I understand a lot of things. Like I'm not just an athlete. I have like the mind for the game. So I thought, well, maybe I'll start my own gym or maybe I'll start my own online training academy, right? And then I kind of like looked into that and I like studied like how to be an entrepreneur. I studied how to market myself. I studied like how to grow your social media and stuff. And I cannot tell you how much I disliked that, right? I just didn't like it.
Uh-huh.
I don't like selling things. I'm not like I'm an introverted person.
Mm-hmm.
So like the idea of me like being this like master salesman or even when I like, if I decide I wanted to be good at something, I can be good at it, right? So I like decided I wanted to get my Twitter following up. It was up 10,000, 20,000 like overnight, but I was miserable doing it. So I was like, I don't like this. I don't like anything about this. So I had already started trading like stocks a little bit, and then I started with I started with 10 grand, right? And then I was putting money into this business. I was going to start my own online training academy because I know in 5 years I'm probably done fighting. You know? And then I have little kids, right? I got to take care of them still.
Absolutely.
So I was like, how am I going to do that? And then I had 10 grand for the academy and I had like 10 grand for the stock market, right? And the 10 grand for the academy turned into 5 grand buying all the websites and stuff. And the 10 grand I put in the stock market, I turned into 200. So I was like, oh,
that seems like a better idea.
This seems like a better idea. And I actually enjoy this and I actually like it. You know what I mean? Like this I can do. And I was and since I've been doing that, I study extremely a lot. Like I said, I do the market all day, you know. I have like a good setup and stuff, and you know, eventually I'll probably start my own research firm and I'll try to do all that kind of stuff. But overall, it was the stock market gives me a freedom and the ability to make money without me having to um, sell myself.
Tell
And
yourself, yeah,
and one of the and I
yep.
really I just don't like that world and I just don't like that life. So this gives me the ability to kind of be happy, be myself, to make my own schedule and do what I want and not be I don't want to make it seem like entrepreneurs are slaves or anything like to the system or anything, but it's just that would make me feel bad. Like I would not be good at it, and even though I think well no, I think I would be good at it, but I think it would drag on me mentally, and I just wouldn't want to be like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you're having success outside the cage besides just fighting. That's good, and I hope a lot of fighters can learn something from you rather than I know they still do their promotions on their page. They have different products, but there's
Yeah.
different ways of going about it. Nick, just two more questions, and I'll let you go here. I had to ask this question just to clear the air. I know there was a little thing going on with BJ Penn a year ago, 2 years ago. Is everything okay in that sense? Are you guys okay? Do you still want that fight, or is that something that's kind of in the back burner? Or you think he just retired? He's done.
No, no. The only reason I would fight BJ is if he was in the UFC, and he's not in the UFC. As far as our beef goes, I have no beef with BJ Penn. I've never had a beef with BJ Penn. Like
Yeah.
BJ Penn like affects me zero.
Yes.
But he is kind of a liar and a cheat, and so I do enjoy picking at him
Yeah.
because it frustrates him, it bothers him, and like I I I kind of enjoy it. So every time he comes at me, he gives me the chance to just mess around or to go after him. But in general, like I don't want the guy to like end up dead somewhere. I don't want anything bad to happen to him or his family. I just I just don't like him because he's a liar and a cheat, and I know I would beat him up, and so that's the reason that I was able wanted to fight with him. But now that that's over and he's not in the UFC no more, like
Yeah.
there's nothing in it for me. So
So no more,
yeah.
no more poems.
Probably not. Probably
No more
not.
poems.
That's the kind of thing that I like doing though. See, and that's the issue is because it's funny to me. It's just funny to me that I make him have to like read that and like not understand it, and then have to like go to his dad and his dad has to explain it to him. Like it just I like messing with him just because he's kind of a jerk. But but besides that, yeah, I think we're good.
You can always go to the career. If you ever want to become a poet, that poem was amazing. I was gonna pull it to read it, but I'm like, people, you guys can look it up if you ever want to see. But
Yeah.
last question, and thank you so much again, Nick, for coming on. So when you said you and Jorge Masvidal are friends. You
Mhm.
see a guy like him who has fought for a very long time, just like you. You've been fighting for a very long time. Had a
Yeah.
lot of fights in the UFC. Does that motivate you to see somebody like him kind of have like that second breath in his career? To now he's fighting for a title, and he might
Yeah.
be a champion come this Saturday.
Yeah, it does. It does. And not only does it, it's because we've trained together, you know, like me, him, Dustin, like we've all trained together for a long time. And so when you see guys that you train with all the time and you know your abilities and you know that like you're on that same level and you're able to compete with all the guys you see, like this is this is something I enjoy. And I also enjoy seeing the people who haven't done their careers right. Like, not, I don't want to say right, but the way fighting is now, everyone has like protected records. They don't lose because losing means kind of more now.
Yeah,
So when they're coming up, they don't take hard fights. They don't take short notice fights. It's very mapped out. Like they're good at talking, but behind the scenes, like they won't accept fights with dangerous people. And the fact of the matter is, especially in MMA is a game where it's all about your style, right? It's it like so the people who the people in MMA who people think are the best are very good fighters, but there's someone who will never make it into the UFC that will be able to beat that guy,
yeah,
right? That will happen. And so when you see someone with like undefeated records and you see that all you're seeing is you're seeing a promotion of that person who has been kind of safe for the most part. You know what I mean? I mean, there's exceptions. Like obviously, like Khabib is very good and he deserves
Yeah.
to be undefeated. But for the most part, like when it comes to guys who have not been willing to throw down with whoever, they're going to have prettier records. And so it's cool to see someone like a Masvidal who has fought at so many different weight classes, who has been willing to fight anybody, and he's taken a lot of hits in this game. But it's nice to see him get paid for all that time that he didn't just take the easy road out. So I do like that. It's a weird situation because they're both my friends,
Yeah, Usman.
and Usman is on my team now.
Yeah, he's on your team now. Yeah.
but
Not gonna ask you
but
for a fight pick. I'm not gonna ask you for a fight pick.
but overall, like it is cool to see, and it's nice to see that there are guys out there not only getting paid but also getting the attention they deserve.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And Nick, thank you so much for coming on. If you have anything that you want to say to the fans out there that are watching, the floor is yours.
No. Just if you need anything, you just hit me up on social media.
Perfect. Nick, thank you so much for coming on. All right. Have a
Yeah,
good one.
thank you. Yeah, you too. Bye.
Nick Lentz, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. It'll be on my page directly after this. It'll be on my YouTube page. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I will see you guys on Thursday. Me and Nick will be on here. Talk about Fight Island, UFC 251, Masvidal versus Usman. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming. Mystic Black out.